All right, the watch list for Friday, April 8th. Before I do that, I've got to answer an email real quick I got from the Bernie Sanders campaign request. They're asking for money. I wouldn't piss on, BR if he was on fire. I wouldn't piss on Bernie if he was on fire. Okay, I have been meaning to get that done. You got to get the busy work out of the way, and then we can go on to the list. So here we go. SPY pushing down a little bit. It looked like it was going to lose its 204, but ended up closing right about at it. It did touch the 20-day today. A little bit of extra volume. So anyway, there's plenty of stuff to trade on an intraday basis. Excuse me, gap plays and some of these overnight watch list stocks are working out as well. So here's what I'm watching for Friday. Now this, again, it's not a great setup or anything, but what's interesting, I guess, is that it held up pretty well in a pretty weak tape. All right, on an intraday, there's the SPY versus MOMO. So I'm not in love with it, but maybe it gives us one of our low risk setups. So it's got to go on watch. SKYS had a nice bounce today off the 8-day moving average. Real quick, I'm going to teach you a great setup if you don't know this one. All right, we try to keep the recent high flyers, recent low float high flyers on charts at all times. And when I say recent, I mean within the past week. So this SKYS, huge 3-day move, 2 days lower. If you watched the video last night, I said that I'd like this to come in another day, but it might bounce tomorrow, right? And so you can see what it did. But the beauty of what it did, and Ramesh, one of our members, kind of chat slapped me and woke me up on this one because I didn't see it, all right? So when it looked like this right here is the opening 5-minute candle. Ramesh typed in SKYS worth watching. So I glanced at it and I said, oh my God, that's a great setup because you've got the 2 days lower. Now for 20 minutes, because there's 4 or 5-minute candles there, it's in a 20-cent range. Okay, after that crazy move it made last week or earlier this week, and then you get a narrow range for 20 minutes. If this isn't going to break down, more than likely it's going to break up. So when it looked like this, I put out in the chat room, I think I call it 442, 430, something like that. My numbers could be off a little bit. And that was my idea. And look what it does. Triggers and goes up over 520. That's a huge percentage move in a very short period of time. And that made my day right there. The reason it's on watch for tomorrow is, it, again, pretty strong in a weak tape. That one might continue to bounce tomorrow, all right? So that one lands on the watch list again. KTOV, this one feels extended. I don't like to call longs away from the 8-day moving average, and it's up away from there right now. But it's a relatively new issue, and it broke out of this little, you can kind of picture a trend line there, and it broke out over this little wedge pattern here today. And if you look at it on intraday, held up pretty well, right? Held up pretty well in a weak tape. So that's worth watching, but at the same time, keep in mind it's extended. Having said that, if it gets over 530, and again, that's not what I prefer, a better entry, but if this does break 530, you look to the left, there's really nothing in the way of maybe new all-time highs over 570. So it's extended. I'd like to see it come in and maybe trade it next week instead, but keep it on a chart, all right? CBAY, news of insider buying, I think is what sparked this today, and a relatively low float stock and a nice breakout today. This one might have a follow-through day tomorrow, so I'm going to watch that one. YRD, from almost 15 down to 11 in a few sessions. Let's see, I'll show you here real quick. Line tools. This one, came public back here and then kind of put in this kind of cup and handle and then broke out through it. So I'd like to see this come down and retest this breakout area, which will also coincide with the 20-day. So if this sells off in the morning, gets down around 1020, I might be looking for an intraday reversal setup. All right, so that's YRD. EYES, nice break out of this little base here yesterday, and then today kind of a quiet inside day. I certainly like it over today's high, over 560. That one looks good. Lumber Liquidators, no trades in it today. It was on watch, but you had the break out of this little tight range, and now 2 days lower on lower volume. Good setup for a potential bounce tomorrow. SEED, this doesn't seem that tradable, but it's interesting over the 2-day high. I'm not in love with that one. GALE, really nice move here from like 80 cents to $1.90 over the course of whatever that was, 3 weeks maybe, 2.5 weeks. And now we're 3 days lower into the 8-day. That one's good setup for a bounce. RPTP, Nice breakout yesterday. Today, quiet inside day. Potential third day play there. And then lastly, UNXL. I'll have to zoom in a little bit here. You had a nice pop here. Then it looked like it was going to roll back over. Then you put in a lower high right here and stayed pretty strong again in a weak tape. So you've got some catalysts on this one. And they are $1.14 would be a break of today's high. You look to the left. You've got yesterday's high. $1.18 would be a break of that. So 114, 118, and then maybe you test and break through 125. So this is a pretty decent setup. After this pop, it's been consolidating. And again, strong today in a weak tape. We're also going to add gap plays in the morning as well. I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night.